One, two, three, four.
Let's start this tutorial on this van. So this van was made in Illustrator, so I have different layers. The first is the body of my car. Then I've got the two baskets at the back. And finally, I've got a wheel that I'm going to duplicate. So these elements are now in this composition. This composition is fairly standard. It's 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames per second, and here it's 10 seconds long. So we're going to look at how to rig this vehicle in Newton to make the animation you saw earlier. There's nothing very complex about it. I'm going to send my elements to Newton. All I have to do is go to Composition, Newton. I'll end up with this. Newton doesn't have the necessary elements to display the wheels. We need to put masks on these layers. So here I've selected my rear tire and I'm going to double click on the ellipse tool and it's going to create a mask. I'm going to change the color so you can see it. And that's created a mask on my wheel. I don't need to see the result of the mask in After Effects, I only need it in Newton. So I'm going to set the transfer mode to none. I've got my wheel defined here. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I can even copy and paste my mask onto the other wheel since it's exactly the same. For the body of my car, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create a mask that will define the body of this car. I don't need anything very precise. In fact, it's just for visualization purposes. It won't really change the simulation. So here I am. I've got the body of my car and then I've got my baskets behind it. But these I'm going to leave as they are. So I'll just add colors to my labels. I'm going to put the body of my car in orange. I'm going to put my wheels in purple, for example. And then my two baskets I'm going to put in brown. And that's it. Now I've got my scene. I can go back into Newton. I've set up a keyboard shortcut to launch Newton, F5, which allows me to switch quickly between After Effects and Newton. I advise you to do the same. Now my objects are well defined. However, I don't have the colors on them. I'm going to right-click Reset Scene, and now I've got the colors right. I change my background to black. And now I've got my car. How do I rig this car with Newton? Let's start by putting a floor on it. I'll select my baskets. Right now, I don't need them, so I'm going to take them out of the simulation. I'll set them to dead. That leaves me with the body of my car and its wheels. To rig a car in Newton, we're going to use wheel joints, which not only provide suspension, but also create a motor between the chassis and the wheel, thus turning the wheel and moving the vehicle forward. So to use wheel joints, there's a selection order, and it's very important. First select the chassis, then the wheel, and then you can apply your wheel joint. So he created a wheel joint for me. And this wheel joint has one particularity. It has a direction. You can see its direction by this little handle here, which you can move using the anchor point tool. So the length of this handle is of no importance, it's just visual. However, its direction is very important, i.e., it must point in the direction of my suspension. Now, my suspension acts in this direction, the vertical. So I put this handle vertically and do the same thing next to it. And that's it. It's not bad, but you're going to say it doesn't work. Well, if it does work, it's just that if I select my joints in suspension, I get 0. But if I set a suspension to 10, for example, it works. I'm going to change a few things immediately. The first is my gravity, because you can see that my vehicle is falling very slowly. It's falling very slowly because it looks like it's, 50 meters high when it's really only 2, so I'm going to increase my gravity. I'm going to put it at 40. There, now I've got something more realistic. Even 30 would be enough. That's it. And I'm going to increase my solver's substeps. I'll put in 10. And that's it. So what does that give me? Well, you can already see that my vehicle has a lot of bounce. The suspensions are very stiff. I'd like something a bit softer, so I'm going to put 5. It moves a little more. And the thing you can also see in my animation for the moment, it never stops moving. So now we're going to increase the damping value. If I set it to 1, what does that give? That's it, it's very stopped. It's even too much. So I'm going to reduce the damping. I'll set it to 0.3, which doesn't sound too bad. Okay, I've got my vehicle rigged. It's not moving, but we'll take care of that right away. So to make it move forward, well, in our joint properties, we have 3 options. The first is to start the engine, the second is the engine's rotation speed, and the third is the engine's torque. So I'm going to decide that the propulsion will be done by the rear wheel, or I could put it in the front. I could also put it on both wheels. But in this example, I'm only going to use the rear wheel. All I have to do is engage the motor. And then I'll enter a rotation speed. For example, I'm going to set 10 for rotation speed and 10 for torque, and we'll see what happens. It works, it advances slowly, and then gradually accelerates. We can increase the torque. I'll set it to 300, and it'll go straight away. Okay, but there's one thing. If you look, you can't see very well. But here in my wheels, there's a line. If I change the color, I'll take another blue color. You can see that there's a line. So you can see the rotation of the wheel. And maybe you need to increase the friction of the tire because it has to grip very hard. So I'm going to put 100. And if we do that, we see that I have a sharper acceleration. But my vehicle doesn't move very fast. So I'm going to increase the rotation speed. For example, set it to 40, and off we go. That's roughly what I want. However, what I'd like is for my vehicle to start once it lands on the ground, and then it will begin to roll. So for that to happen, I need to start my vehicle at some point. There are 2 ways of doing this. The first solution is to animate enable motor. Or you can animate the rotation speed. Personally, I think that the rotation speed is perhaps more interesting because it allows you to be progressive. So I'm going to animate this feature. I'm going to set an initial keyframe. When should it start? Let's say around frame 40. So at 40 it's 0. And then we'll gradually increase to 90, where the speed will be at 40 in rotation. And I will also add an ease out. So here you see my curve is very gradual. Let's see how it goes. So here it's not running, and here it's starting up. And then it gradually accelerates. Great. That's pretty good. I'd like it to be a bit more of a dragster. I'd like if there was a little startup where the nose of the vehicle rose up. To do that, we're going to take our engine and give it full acceleration. In 5 images, it'll be at full speed. And then I'm going to increase its torque to the max. I'm going to put a big torque, 1000. Let's see how it goes. Yes, it works. What I'd like to do too is put it a little more on the back, a little deeper. Maybe it's dragging a bit too much on the ground. Maybe we can also reduce the damping to make it a little softer. Oh, it works. Great. That's exactly what I want. Well, that's very, very good. So, the only thing missing from this simulation is that I don't have the baskets. So how do I use the baskets? If I put them back into dynamics, the problem is that they come out of the vehicle. So why do they leave the vehicle? Because they're stacked on top of each other. What we're going to do is create a mask and modify our mask so that our baskets are inside as if they were in the trunk. So it's very simple. I'm going to go back to After Effects, I'm going to put none, and then I'm going to modify my mask to create a trunk. If I add it again, you'll see that I have the background here. But this background, it's actually virtually hidden by the bodywork. So now I'm going back into Newton, and now I've got my trunk. Let's see what happens if I don't change anything. It's funny, the baskets are abandoned on the road. There, that's not bad. Let's render. So I'm not going to render 299 images. I'll render less, maybe 120 images, that'll be enough. Okay, 100 frames and I'll press render. And that's it. And here's my simulation. But I need to be able to track my vehicle a bit more. So I'm going to put it in a new composition, and then I'll add some animation points. So here he falls, and then from there it moves. And it goes that way, so now I'll have to move forward. Don't forget to click on the little sun. And this way I can get my car back. Gone like a bomb. You can also see that my wheels are sticking out. It's going to be quick to fix them. I'm going to create a solid. I'll put it at this position. I'll link it to the body. And then I'll take my wheels and apply a track matte. I reverse it, and now that's it. Maybe I can add a shadow. I'll make an ellipse. I'll link its position to the body of my car. But only in X, and in Y, this will be its value here. And here you can see that I've got my shadow. It only follows this layer here on the X-axis. I can find it here. Maybe I'll change its color, use something lighter. So much for the first part of Car Rig with Newton.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, in this first part, I've created my rig, started my car, and that's it. But you can go further, and that's what we're going to do right now. So my aim here is to get my car started, but also to get it to stop. And then we're going to back it up. And the last thing is, I'd like these baskets to be emptied of objects. So we're going to relaunch Newton. I've got this simulation. This is what I had when I did my rendering earlier. What I'd like to do is launch my car as if a hand had thrown it into the air and it had landed. So we're going to apply a force to all the objects using the velocity tool. So I'm going to take my objects, and when I pull it like this, you can see their trajectories. This is the basic trajectory, so it doesn't take into account bounces or other objects. So if I do this, it'll go something like this. Interesting. I'm going to move my vehicle a bit and make it start a little lower. A little more bell, it might be a little high. There you go. And then I'd like to give it a little bit of rotation. So I'm going to put an angular velocity on all my objects. Now that's too much. But maybe if I just put 1, what will that give? That's a bit too much too. Yeah, that's not bad. We'll leave it at that. But I need to change the moment when the engine starts. So I'm going to take my speed here. And then I'll put it a little bit further. If I go back to my simulation, it should start from here, we'll say image 65. And then at 70. So here my engine is stopped until image 65 and at full speed at 70. Yeah, right. I'd like him to go and then stop quite quickly because he's dropped his baskets. So maybe he'll go, and then he'd have to stop a bit first. Here. So at image 95. So I'm going to show you something. We could cut the motor here, but if I cut the motor, it's like it's coasting. On the other hand, if I modify the speed, it will really force the wheel to stop. So that's what we're going to do now. At frame 95, the speed is 0, and we're going to say that he's going to brake suddenly, so we'll put him in hold. So I have constant speed acceleration and a sudden stop. We need to go a little further. And then my car suddenly stops. Cool. I could back it up too. So we'll put in a little more frames. And to make it move backwards, all you have to do is set a negative rotation value in motor speed. So I set another value. It will stop, and we'll say that at frame 110. It's still at 0, and it's going to accelerate to 115. We're going to set it to negative 20. What's it going to be? She stops and then steps back. And then we'll make it stop again. So that would be around frame 200. It'll stop abruptly. He's a bit of a reckless driver. So it moves forward. Hop, it stops, and it moves back. Let's wait for it to stop. We'll do 180. You'd have to activate the front wheel brake, because right now only the rear wheel brake is activated. That's why it doesn't work. You'd have to brake at 175. We'll also brake the rear wheel. So it's very simple. We're going to make 2 keys. So it's enable motor. Frame 0 and nothing happens. Frame 175, it brakes. In fact, it brakes. In other words, my motor is engaged, but the speed is at 0. I'm going to give it a lot of torque. Hop, it pulls back and stops. I think the front wheel doesn't have enough friction. It's definitely going to brake a lot more. We'll add a little more frames. Perfect. What I'd like to do now is animate these baskets. To do that, we'll close Newton. I'll take my baskets here, create shape from vector layers. And now I still have my baskets, they're in shape layers. And you can see that they're baskets. And then inside there are ellipses that simulate merchandise. So when my baskets fall, they'd have to spill out onto the floor. So how do I do it? Now that I've got these objects, I'm going to run Newton again. And he'll ask me if I want to separate the items in my baskets. So I'm going to separate them. And now in Newton, I still have my simulation except that my baskets are separate. So I'm going to put them back where they belong. Here. So, if I put my body here in static, you see my objects are automatically ejected there because they're on top of each other. So these objects would have to consider that there's no interaction between them. So they'd have to be in different collision groups. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to put all my objects in a collision group that's going to be B, and I'm going to say that everything in group B doesn't interact with group B. And now if I click on play, you'll see that they no longer have any links with each other. On the other hand, they do have links with the other groups. For example, the body of my car, which is group A. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm going to put my car body back into dynamics, and if I run my simulation, we see that everything explodes. So to remedy this, what we're going to do is take the contents of the baskets and the basket, and we're going to link them all together with weld joints. And now what's going on? I've got my baskets back just as I had them before. As if they were a single object, everything comes to life at once. What I'm going to do is give them the same animation as my other objects. So I'm going to do a copy body settings, and I'll do a paste body settings. Then I have to put the collision groups back. So what I want is that when my objects hit the ground, they are emptied of their content. So let's take my first basket with the yellow objects as an example. We'll say that when it lands on this image, all the objects separate. So to do this, I'm going to select all my weld joints that are there. I'll animate whether it's active or inactive. Frame 0, it's active. Frame 92, it's inactive. We'll see how it looks. Here we go, and I'll do the same for the other basket in frame 98. And there I have my complete simulation. Not bad. I'm going to render it. And then I can place this simulation directly in place of the old one. Of course, it's not the right keys anymore. That's it for this animation, which we've improved a lot, with lots of little details and different techniques. Start an engine, rig the wheels, move forward, backward, brake. And then also, we saw how to add some secondary animations that are also related to physics, with the ability to explode objects using a weld joint. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you soon